Well, I think the most important item that's out there that nobody really has an answer to, because Michigan's not going to tell us exactly what's going on, is Daxton Hill. There's multiple reports. It's all over online that he did not make the trip to Miami, and Michigan won't confirm or deny that. So if it's COVID related, I guess there's still a possibility that depending on when that happened, because we've seen this happen with a couple coaches at Alabama, Bill O'Brien, Doug Marrone. We've seen this happen with JT Daniels, where they were inactive for a while, then it ran its course, and the the 10-day kind of national protocol has become a 5-day, and then they clear and they're able to participate and they're good to go. So who knows what's going on with Daxton Hill? And I just bring up coronavirus as being one possibility. It could be a number of things. It could be a family issue. It could be discipline. It could be who knows what.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just quite natural to lean towards COVID because of, let's just be honest, the landscape that we're in today, especially in sports. You're seeing this player going to protocol here, this player going to protocol here, professional in college ranks. You're seeing bowl games canceled. So that tends to be the main obstacle for players or teams participating in the postseason. And I would think it's a pretty safe bet that anything outside of COVID, for the most part, right, outside of some kind of catastrophic family emergency, Daxton Hill will make sure, if he is the player, which it seems like he is, he will make sure he's there to play. So we can't confirm that, but I think it makes sense for us to lean towards that way. And it's definitely a tough loss. I mean, you're talking about one of your most versatile, probably your most versatile player in your defense. Maybe not the best player, but definitely most versatile. I mean, just a couple streams ago, we were talking about the tight end for Georgia, Bowers, and who could be a good matchup for him on the field. Well, Daxton Hill was one of the players that we brought up, and as well as our listeners or watchers, brought up as well. But guess what? It looks like he may not be available. So now, what does Mike McDonald do? It's an absolutely terrible loss. Now, that's no excuse for this defense to come out there and to land on their face. They're 13 games in. It has to be next man up, and of course we will see a difference. But the defense cannot fall apart, and it's up to Mike McDonald and Jim Harbaugh to ensure that does not happen. And by all means, with the leadership that this team has displayed all year, starting from Aiden Hutchinson, I don't think that will happen. They won't fall apart, but they definitely will miss him.
Yeah, how many times have we seen a situation where maybe a player wasn't necessarily lost before the game? We've seen that situation, of course, too. But how many times in a huge game where within one play, 2 plays, right at the beginning of the game, first series, some key players gone, and then there's a bit of a fire drill, and the offense of the defense has to adjust and go to plan B, and hopefully those plans have already been figured out. Hey, we lose this player, we shift him here and we move him up from the second team to fill that spot, or it's just a straight swap from the second team position up to the first team or whatever it is. But as soon as I said that, 2 Ohio State situations come to mind, and that wouldn't be coincidental that those would come to mind for me. But, there are obviously other examples out there. Ted Ginn was lost after the opening kickoff of a national championship game against Florida in 2006. And then Trey Sermon, Ohio State's leading rusher, who had just run for 300 yards in the Big Ten championship game, was lost on the first play of the game in the national championship game against Alabama. And, it's football. You got to move on to the next guy. And Daxton Hill, like you say, he's the most important part of that secondary for sure. And hopefully he can suit up and play, because unless you're a super serious Georgia fan who just wants to win at all costs, I think everybody else that's just on the Michigan side, of course, but even the rest of us just want to watch football and see the best players out there. We want to see Daxton Hill on the field.
Well, you just want to see both teams at their best. From a product standpoint, you want to see both teams at their best. You don't want to see the quarterbacks going down. You want to see running backs and any key players. And Daxton Hill, by all means, is an impact player. He's not just by all means, I don't mean this as a diss to DJ Turner, or Taylor Upshaw or anything like that. But when you think about like star players, the impact players that people have become accustomed to seeing, Dax Hill's one of those guys. So you're going to miss that. It's not going to be one of those guys that he's you notice when he's now in the field. When number 30 is now in the field roaming and making plays, and I think one thing that will be interesting to learn about Mike McDonald and Harbaugh is, and granted, we don't know when this situation came apparent, but how good of a job do they do with preparing their team for this potential loss, right? Were they thinking ahead, right? Because here's the thing, even if this Daxton Hill thing came out of nowhere last minute, a good coaching staff, you would think, continues to have contingency plans, backup plans based on the landscape of what's going on today. Players are popping up positive, coaches are popping up positive left and right. So you have to constantly be thinking about the what if scenarios. So that'll be interesting to see, if Mike McDonald and Harbaugh did a good job of that. And maybe it still doesn't matter. They still feel the true impact of the loss of Daxton Hill anyway. But you will hope that they have been preparing before the situation came up.
Blank name is taking us back to some recent bowl games. Says the last time Michigan played in the Orange Bowl, star safety did not play. Hopefully the end result of the game will not happen again. So that would have been the Florida State game against in the Orange Bowl. Jabril Peppers did not play.
Right.
Jake Butt decided to play, got hurt.
Yeah, towards
like the first series of the game.
Yeah.
Took a serious injury. Then 2 years later in the 2018 Peach Bowl against Florida, Karan Higdon didn't play. Right. I don't think Rashawn Gary played. Somebody else didn't play. Somebody else that was
No, maybe it was a couple. No, I think Cleek played last year.
I thought there was somebody else that didn't play in that game. I thought they had at least 3 guys sit out of that game against Florida.
Rob J says, "Oh, it was Bush, Devin Bush. That probably is a good, good. Thank you, Rob, for doing that. Probably have to double check that, but that would have been a huge loss. No, I mean it's one of those things where this has bigger stakes in those games. I mean, those games were New Year's Six games, so big games. But this is, to win a national title. So I mean, it's even more, potentially even more catastrophic to this team. But look, there's still a chance that Daxton Hill can play. So we're just speaking on what's speculated out there, and by all means, it's a big enough speculation where it's a huge deal. I mean, like, you can't just whistle by the graveyard on this. I mean, it's a potentially huge loss. And one of the things that I was very pleased to hear from Josh Gaddis, because Mark and I'm sure fans also can relate to this. I've been wondering, how do the players react to all this layover time, this downtime between the conference championship and this game? Because just like fans, it's only human nature. You come off having this huge high of when you beat Ohio State in convincing fashion, and you go on and win a Big Ten title game, and you're about as high as you can get in terms of emotion. And then quite naturally, you come back home and you don't play any football. And you're playing great football, your best football you have all year at this point in time. So how did the team handle that? Were they able to stay focused and be in tuned into the details throughout the weeks of practice? And one thing Josh Gaddis said during his interview, I believe down at the Orange Bowl, this past week, is he talked about like he hasn't noticed. He said he mentioned how we definitely would have loved to play the very next day if we could have after beating Iowa. From the way we felt internally, but he was very pleased with the attention to detail that players had, particularly on offense, of course, and that he felt like guys are staying locked in, which is great to hear. Because you know, one thing you just don't want to see is you know, you just hope that guys don't get too caught up in the moment and make sure that they stay locked in even throughout all this downtime.